Hello everyone, welcome to the 17th video of my YouTube channel, Four Corners of the Earth. I am going to continue reading the Book of Leviticus. I left off on chapter 14, so we're going to start on Leviticus chapter 15. And on today's reading, it's going to be talking about the unclean genital discharges. The Day of Atonement, the tabernacle place for sacrifices, eating blood is forbidden, regulations on animal found is dead. So again, it's like the rules and like what they would have to do on certain occasions. With like it's back in the day, so they had to have the rules on doing what to do to be like safe and not, contaminate other people and seem like it's not unholy what they're doing at the same time, because it's all God's rules on how to, that they had to follow the etiquette. So really interesting. Let's continue here. Please follow with your own Bibles or just watch the video. Leviticus 15. Jehovah continued to speak to Moses and Aaron, saying, "Speak to the Israelites and tell them, if a man has a discharge from his genital organ, this discharge makes him unclean. He is unclean from the discharge, whether the discharge continues to flow from his genitals or is obstructed. He is still unclean. Any bed that the one with the discharge lies on will be unclean, and anything he sits on will be unclean. A man who touches his bed must wash his garments, and he should bathe in water and be unclean until the evening. Anyone who sits on the article that the one having a discharge sat on should wash his garments, bathe in water, and be unclean until the evening. Whoever touches the flesh of the one having a discharge should wash his garments, bathe in water, and be unclean until the evening. If the one who has a discharge spits on someone clean, that person must wash his garments, bathe in water, and be unclean until the evening. Any saddle that the one with the discharge rides on will be unclean. Anyone touching anything that was under him will be clean until the evening, and anyone who carries those items will wash his garments, bathe in water, and be unclean until the evening. If the one with the discharge has not washed his hands in water and he touches someone, that person must then wash his garments, bathe in water, and be unclean until the evening. An earthenware vessel that the one having a discharge touches should be smashed, and any wooden vessel should be washed with water. When the discharge stops and the person becomes clean from it, he will then count 7 days for his purification, and he must wash his garments, bathe himself in running water, and he will be clean. On the 8th day, he should take 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons and come before Jehovah at the entrance of the tent of meeting and give them to the priest. And the priest will offer them, the one as a sin offering and the other as a burnt offering. And the priest will make atonement for him before Jehovah concerning his discharge. Now, if a man has an emission of semen, he should bathe his whole body in water and be unclean until the evening. He must wash with water any garment and any skin with semen on it, and it will be unclean until the evening. When a man lies with a woman and has an emission of semen, they should bathe in water and be unclean until the evening. If a woman has a discharge of blood from her body, she will continue in her menstrual impurity for 7 days. Anyone touching her will be unclean until the evening. Anything she lies down on in her menstrual impurity will be unclean, and everything she sits on will be unclean. Anyone touching her bed should wash his garments, bathe in water, and be unclean until the evening. Anyone touching any article she sat on should wash his garments, bathe in water, and be unclean until the evening. If she sat on the bed or on another article, his touching it will make him unclean until the evening. And if a man lies down with her, and her menstrual impurity comes on him, he will then be unclean for 7 days, and any bed on which he lies down will be unclean. When a woman's discharge of blood flows for many days, when it is not the regular time of her menstruation, or if she should have a flow longer than her usual menstruation, she will be unclean during all the days of her discharge, as in the days of her menstrual impurity. Any bed she lies on during the days of her discharge will become like the bed of her menstrual impurity, and an article she sits on will become unclean like the uncleanness of her menstrual impurity. Anyone touching them will be unclean, and he must wash his garments, bathe in water, and be unclean until the evening. However, when she is clean from her discharge, she will count for herself 7 days, and afterward she will be clean. On the 8th day, she should take 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, and she will bring them to the priest at the entrance of the tent of meeting. The priest will make the one a sin offering and the other a burnt offering, and the priest will make atonement for her before Jehovah concerning her unclean discharge. Thus you must keep the Israelites separate from their uncleanness, so that they do not die in the uncleanness by defiling my tabernacle, which is in their midst. This is the law about the man having a discharge. The man who is unclean because of an emission of semen, the woman during her menstrual impurity, any male or female who have a discharge flowing from the body, and a man who lies down with an unclean woman. Chapter 16. Jehovah spoke to Moses after the death of Aaron's 2 sons who died for approaching Jehovah. Jehovah said to Moses, "Tell Aaron, your brother, that he may not come at just any time into the holy place inside the curtain, in front of the cover on the ark, so that he may not die. For I will appear over the cover in a cloud. This is what Aaron should bring when he comes into the holy place: a young bull for a sin offering, and a ram for a burnt offering. He should put on the holy linen robe, and the linen shorts should cover his body. And he should wrap himself with the linen sash, and his head with the linen turban. They are holy garments. He will bathe himself in water and put them on. He should take from the assembly of the Israelites 2 young male goats for a sin offering, and 1 ram for a burnt offering. Aaron must then present the bull of the sin offering, which is for himself, and he will make atonement in behalf of himself and his house. He will then take 2 goats and make them stand before Jehovah at the entrance of the tent of meeting. Aaron will draw lots over the 2 goats, the one lot for Jehovah and the other lot for Azazel. Aaron will present the goat that was designated by lot over Jehovah and make it a sin offering. But the goat designated by lot over Azazel should be brought alive to stand before Jehovah in order to perform the atonement upon it, so that it may be sent away for Azazel into the wilderness. Aaron will present the bull of the sin offering, which is for himself, and make atonement in behalf of himself and his house. Afterward, he will slaughter the bull of the sin offering, which is for himself. He will then take the fire holder full of burning coals from the altar before Jehovah, and 2 handfuls of fine perfume incense, and he will bring them inside the curtain. He will also put the incense on the fire before Jehovah, and the cloud of the incense will envelop the ark cover, which is on the testimony, so that he may not die. He will take some of the bull's blood and spatter it with his finger in front of the cover on the east side, and he will spatter some of the blood with the finger 7 times before the cover. He will then slaughter the goat of the sin offering, which is for the people, and bring its blood inside the curtain, and do with its blood the same as he did with the bull's blood. He is to spatter it toward the cover and before the cover. He must make atonement for the holy place concerning the acts of uncleanness of the Israelites and concerning their transgressions and their sins. And that is what he should do for the tent of meeting, which is located among them in the midst of their acts of uncleanness. No other man should be in the tent of meeting from the time he goes in to make atonement in the holy place until he comes out. He will make atonement in behalf of himself and his house and in behalf of the entire congregation of Israel. He will then come out to the altar, which is before Jehovah, and make atonement for it. And he will take some of the bull's blood and some of the goat's blood and put it on the horns of the altar on all sides. He will also spatter some of the blood on it with its fingers 7 times and cleanse it and sanctify it from the acts of uncleanness of the Israelites. When he has finished making atonement for the holy place and the tent of meeting and the altar, he will also present the live goat. Aaron will lay both his hands on the head of the live goat and confess over it all the errors of the Israelites and all their transgressions and all their sins. And he will put them on the head of the goat and send it away into the wilderness by the hand of a man designated to do this. The goat will carry upon itself all their errors into a desert land, and he will send the goat away into the wilderness. Aaron will then enter the tent of meeting and take off the linen garments that he put on when he was in the holy place, and he will lay them down there. He must bathe himself in water in a holy place and put on his garments. Then he will come out and offer up his burnt offering and the people's burnt offering and make atonement in his own behalf and in behalf of the people. He will make the fat of the sin offering smoke on the altar. The man who sent away the goat for Azazel should wash his garments and bathe himself in water, and after that he may come into the camp. And the bull of the sin offering and the goat of the sin offering, whose blood was brought into the holy place to make atonement, will be taken outside the camp, and their skins and their flesh and their dung will be burned in the fire. The one who burns them should wash his garments and bathe himself in water, and after that he may come into the camp. It will serve as a lasting statute for you. In the 7th month, on the 10th of the month, you should afflict yourselves, and you must not do any work, whether a native or a foreigner who is residing among you. On this day atonement will be made for you to declare you clean. You will be clean from all your sins before Jehovah. It is a Sabbath of complete rest for you, and you should afflict yourselves. It is a lasting statute. The priest who is anointed and installed to serve as priest in place of his father will make atonement and put on the linen garments, the holy garments. He will make atonement for the holy sanctuary, the tent of meeting, and the altar, and he will make atonement for the priest and for all the people of the congregation. This will serve as a lasting statute for you, to make atonement for the Israelites concerning all their sins once each year. So he did, just as Jehovah had commanded Moses. Chapter 17. Jehovah went to say to Moses, "Speak to Aaron and his sons and all the Israelites and say to them, this is what Jehovah has commanded. If any man of the house of Israelites slaughters a bull or a young ram or a goat in the camp, or if he slaughters it outside the camp, instead of bringing it to the entrance of the tent of meeting to present it as an offering to Jehovah before the tabernacle of Jehovah, blood guilt will be counted to that man. He has shed blood, and that man must be cut off from among his people. This is so that the Israelites will bring the sacrifices, which they now sacrifice in the open field to Jehovah, to the entrance of the tent of meeting, to the priest. They are to sacrifice these as communion sacrifices to Jehovah. And the priest will sprinkle the blood on Jehovah's altar at the entrance of the tent of meeting, and make the fat smoke as a pleasing aroma to Jehovah. So they should no longer offer sacrifices to the goat-like demons, with which they are prostituting themselves. This will serve as a lasting statute for you throughout your generations. You should say to them, any man of the house of Israel or any foreigner who is residing in your midst who offers up a burnt offering or a sacrifice and does not bring it to the entrance of the tent of meeting to offer it to Jehovah must be cut off from his people. If any man of the house of Israel or any foreigner who is residing in your midst eats any sort of blood, I will certainly set my face against that one who is eating the blood, and I will cut him off from among his people. For the life of the flesh is in the blood, and I myself have given it on the altar for you to make atonement for yourselves, because it is the blood that makes atonement by means of life in it. That is why I have said to the Israelites, none of you should eat blood, and no foreigner who is residing in your midst should eat blood. If one of the Israelites or some foreigner who is residing in your midst is hunting and catches a wild animal or a bird that may be eaten, he must pour its blood out and cover it with dust. For the life of every sort of flesh is its blood, because the life is in it. Consequently, I said to the Israelites, you must not eat the blood of any sort of flesh, because the life of every sort of flesh is its blood. Anyone eating it will be cut off. If anyone, whether a native or a foreigner, eats an animal found dead or any torn by a wild animal, he must then wash his garments and bathe in water and be unclean until the evening. Then he will be clean. But if he does not wash them and does not bathe himself, he will answer for his error. Chapter 18. Jehovah continues to speak to Moses, saying, speak to the Israelites and say to them, I am Jehovah your God. You must not behave as they do in the land of Egypt, where you are dwelling, and you must not do what they do in the land of Canaan, where I am bringing you, and you must not walk in their statutes. You should carry out my judicial decisions, and you should keep my statutes and walk in them. I am Jehovah your God. You must keep my statutes and my judicial decision. Anyone who does so will live by means of them. I am Jehovah. No man among you should approach any of his close relatives to have sexual relations. I am Jehovah. You must not have sexual relations with your father, and you must not have sexual relations with your mother. She is your mother, and you must not have sexual relations with her. You must not have sexual relations with your father's wife. It is exposing your father to shame. You must not have sexual relations with your sister, either the daughter of your father or the daughter of your mother, whether she is born in the same household or born outside of it. You must not have sexual relations with the daughter of your son or the daughter of your daughter, because they are your own nakedness. You must not have sexual relations with the daughter of your father's wife, the offspring of your father, because she is your sister. You must not have sexual relations with your father's sister. She is your father's blood relative. You must not have sexual relations with your mother's sister, because she is your mother's blood relative. You must not expose your father's brother to shame by having sexual relations with his wife. She is your aunt. You must not have sexual relations with your daughter-in-law. She is your son's wife, and you must not have relations with her. You must not have sexual relations with your brother's wife, because it is exposing your brother to shame. You must not have sexual relations with a woman and her daughter. You must not take the daughter of her son and the daughter of her daughter in order to have relations. They are her close relatives. It is an obscene act. You must not take a woman in addition to her sister as a rival wife and have sexual relations with her while her sister is alive. You must not approach a woman during her menstrual impurity to have sexual relations with her. You must not have sexual intercourse with the wife of your fellow man, making yourself unclean. You must not allow any of your offspring to be offered to Molech. You must not profane the name of your God in that way. I am Jehovah. You must not lie down with a male in the same way that you lie down with a woman. It is a detestable act. A man must not have sexual intercourse with an animal to become unclean, nor should a woman offer herself to an animal to have intercourse with it. It is a violation of what is natural. Do not make yourselves unclean by any of these things, for it is by all these things that the nations that I am driving out from before you have made themselves unclean. Therefore, the land is unclean, and I will bring punishment on it for its error, and the land will vomit its inhabitants out. But you yourselves must keep my statutes and my judicial decisions, and you must not do any of these detestable things, whether a native or a foreigner who is residing among you. For all these detestable things were done by the men who lived in the land before you, and now the land is unclean. Then the land will not have to vomit you out for defiling it in the same way that it will vomit out the nations that were before you. If anyone does any of these detestable things, all those doing them must be cut off from among their people. You must keep your obligation to me by not practicing any of the detestable customs that were carried on before you, so that you do not make yourselves unclean by them. I am Jehovah your God. I'm going to end it there. Okay, this was a powerful read, especially in our modern times. First of all, let me go back to, was it Leviticus 16? That was the first time when it says, he will then take 2 goats and make them stand before Jehovah, and in the entrance of the tent, Aaron will draw lots for over the 2 goats. Lots. You might not all know this, some of you might, but it's called casting lots. And casting lots was something back in the day that they would, it was guided by God to make the decision, but it's pretty much like rolling the dice. And they, like, for instance, these 2 goats were put in a thing, they would shake it, roll it out, or whichever one they pick, that goat was the one for God, and the other one was for Aaron or whatever, for the lot for Azazel. So that's how it was back then. And throughout the whole Bible, you find this of casting lots. So when you have, if you're a person of God, and you have a crazy decision, either choosing A or B, you pray to God. You could either flip a coin, or you could write in 2 different pieces of paper, put it in like a little sash or a little bag, and then, so you pray to God, do that, and then you pull out, and whatever that answer is the one that God chose for you. And first time I show another text on here, but it is proven, and also, Proverbs 16:33, and I know this one by memory. It says, the lot is cast into the lap. Hear this. But every decision by it, it's from Jehovah God. So it's not just chance. God makes the decision of the lot that is casted. So right here, when this is the first time, Aaron on Leviticus 16, chapter 16 verse 8, Aaron will draw lots over the 2 goats, the one lot for Jehovah and the other lot for Azazel. Isn't that crazy? And it says Aaron will present the goat that was designated by lot for Jehovah and make it a sin offering. So God literally chose the goat through this rolling dice situation. Look it up. It's called casting lots. And this is the first time you ever hear about it in Leviticus 16, chapter 8. But anyways, fun read. And then crazy how later on we find out about this no incest. This is what the other people were doing in their times, was committing incest with another, and God finds it detestable. among other things that people are practicing nowadays. I'm not going to get into that, but very interesting read, and I'm going to end it there. I hope you're all good. We'll start on Leviticus 19, next chapter. What can I say? God bless you and your families. Take care, everybody. See you tomorrow.